And Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. We live in a complex and multi-dimensional world where the rate of change is astonishingly quick. In order to deal with that change, it's important that we think carefully about what Britain's role in the world is. And I believe the country needs a strategy. I believe the government, any government, need to work out what it is they want to achieve in the world. They need to work out very carefully what resource they have available to underpin that achievement. And when they've done that, they need to work out how they're going to achieve what they want to achieve with the resources they've got available. Yes, of course, unforeseen crises will always arise. But what's our vision? What's our strategy? Now, that's not rocket science, or it shouldn't be, but that's not what happened in October 2010 with the Strategic Defence and Security Review. And I believe that what should happen, and I fully accept that it's right that the politics be taken out of this by conducting a review every 5 years, is that the government, of whatever colour, should conduct a detailed, comprehensive and strategic analysis of the world in which we live. And from that analysis, draw conclusions, having consulted very widely. So I believe that we should never tire of asking the question, what is Britain's role in the world? And we should never tire of ensuring that the billions of pounds of taxpayers' money spent achieving foreign policy objectives is underpinned by a rigorous analysis. I've spoken in this place before about hard power, the controlled application of military force. But today, I want to say something about international development and soft power, how the UK can leverage effect in the world through means that employ the influence and diplomatic power we have as a nation, rather than the influence we could exert as a military power. The balance between hard and soft power will inevitably fluctuate, and this is not to conclude that the utility of military force has declined, more that the way in which it is likely to be employed in the future will not be the same as it is now or has been in the recent past. Today, we are seeing the rapid development of the influence of the BRIC and other emerging economies, reshaping the strategic environment in which our country operates. And in this changing geopolitical environment, the way in which the UK and other countries leverage their influence in conflict, in the global markets, in negotiations and in agreements is and will continue to change. This is in part reflective of the way and rate at which countries are developing, and because of rapid developments in technology, the world is a much smaller place than it used to be. Technological advances and globalisation brings many challenges, but has also brought many opportunities to those who are best placed to take advantage of them. We now live in a world where for some, luxuries such as a flat-screen TV and a DVD player have become almost necessities to ease the burden of our ever-stressful lives. There are, however, many millions of people in poorer countries for whom a luxury takes the form of a decent meal, or for whom a luxury would be the security of knowing their child has the same chance of survival as a child here in the UK. Although there has been much good work done over recent years, there is still much more that can and should be done. So I believe this is more than a responsibility for wealthier nations. It is a moral obligation. This is about civilised societies reaching out and protecting the most vulnerable. The UK has an excellent track record when it comes to international development. The commitment of the previous Labour government to the provision of aid was well known, and we achieved great things, helping countries that were being crippled by debt, enabling them to better focus on domestic issues rather than paying money to wealthy nations. This work was not perfect, it was not without risks, and it was often controversial, but it was the right thing to do. I therefore welcome the government's commitment to spending 0.7% of gross national income on aid, but the government could, and in my view, should have gone further and protected this in law, as the Conservative manifesto and the coalition agreement promised. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I believe legislation would have provided some certainty, a guarantee of funds, allowed long-term plans to be made, based on the knowledge that the resources would be in place enable them to be fulfilled. By not including legislative protection for international aid, the government, I believe, is pandering to those who are not in favour of it. Yes, there is a global financial crisis with recession impacting on countries around the world. And in this economic climate, we will have all heard people being sceptical and cynical about the value and the utility of international aid and suggesting that charity should begin at home. I understand why this is said, but in the context of trying to save a child's life, any child's life, because ultimately that is what aid can do, I don't agree with it. And of course it's not just one child, but many, many millions of children. What could anybody prioritise above that? Just from the work that has been done over the previous 20 years, 12,000 fewer children died every day in 2010 compared with 1990. And over the past 2 decades, stunting, where children's bodies and brains fail to develop properly due to malnutrition, has declined from 45% to 28%. Recent research by Save the Children shows that those countries in sub-Saharan Africa that received the most aid over the last decade also made the most progress in child well-being. So I believe it's vital that aid is guaranteed, because famine rarely creeps up and surprises us. Investing early to prevent developing countries from slipping into famine is far more beneficial, efficient, and frankly cheaper than responding to emergencies. Right now, there is an impending famine in Niger, a famine that can be prevented if funds are made available in good time. The disastrous famine in East Africa was widely predicted, yet governments around the world did not release the money in time to prevent it, and millions died. The same thing is happening right now in West Africa, and few will notice until the media arrive. Delighted to give way to Secretary
for giving way. I make this point simply because he's the second honourable member who has said it. The famine in Somalia was predicted. The British government was the first to go to the aid of the hundreds of thousands of people who were caught in that famine. The rest of the world was slow in doing so, but will he at least acknowledge that his own government and his own country, not least through the Disasters Emergency Committee, rapidly addressed that dreadful situation?
I'm grateful to Secretary of State for that intervention. I think the point that I'm trying to make, the point that I'm trying to make is that we shouldn't be in the business of waiting till the media arrive before we intervene and provide funding to deliver aid. And I think the more in which we can prepare for these as much as you ever can, frankly, the more efficient and the best way that we can invest money in preventing these things from happening in the first place. I know that it costs comparatively little to immunise children with the vaccines that our children here in the UK rightly have for free. And in developing countries, 7.6 million children still die each year from easily preventable diseases and conditions such as diarrhoea. The removal of the next generation through infant mortality, which is still as high as 1 in 10 in some regions, takes away those who will be educated, work and bring money into their communities in future years. Small amounts of money can save many lives, and I believe that international aid not only helps those who directly receive it, but in the longer term, there is a knock-on effect to those nations that give it. A healthy society is a more prosperous and stable society, and this will bring benefits to global security and to international trade by helping countries through aid, and also by ensuring that resources are distributed in a way that minimises corruption. They will also build their own capacity to raise money and will be able to improve the lives of their own citizens. So it is in our own longer national term interests to behave in a responsible fashion, but we should not act alone. The G8 has a vital role to play here, and it's essential that the Prime Minister demonstrates strong leadership on preventative action against famine and disease, on the timely release of funds to prevent predicted disasters and crises, and that he urges immediate action by the other G8 countries in committing to this. So the Prime Minister must take the opportunity provided at the G8 this weekend to lead a global push on tackling hunger and malnutrition, the silent killer that is responsible for 2.6 million children's deaths each year, not just for the benefit of those countries in dire need, but for the long-term future benefit of the UK too.
Yeah.